Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big, complex ideas. And today, wow, do we have a big one for you. We're jumping headfirst into one of the internet's most sprawling and honestly fascinating conspiracy theories, the lost empire of Tartaria.
So I want you to just think about this for a second. What if the biggest, most advanced empire in history existed, but was just wiped from the books? That's the core idea we're exploring today, pieced together from all kinds of online sources. It's this incredible story of a lost global civilization whose evidence supporters say is literally all around us.
At its heart, this theory just completely flips our whole understanding of progress on its head. You know, the idea that we started out primitive and got more and more advanced? This theory says, nope, not even close. It suggests we're actually the ones living in the ruins of a civilization that was way more advanced than we are today.
All right, so let's dig in. Where do you even start with something this huge? Well, the theory starts with something you can actually see and touch, old maps. And on those maps, there's a name that has pretty much vanished from the world today, Tartaria. So check this out. If you go and pull up old world maps, anything from the 16th to the 19th century, you're going to find something really odd. A gigantic empire, I mean bigger than any country we have now, called Tartaria or Great Tartary, just sprawling across Asia. And this isn't some vague label for an unknown area. We're talking about maps that show it with clear borders, cities, the whole deal.
And then, poof, it's gone. In what's really a blink of an eye in historical terms, by the late 1800s, Tartaria is completely wiped off the maps. So proponents of this theory have to ask, was that just map makers getting better at their jobs? Or was it a coordinated, deliberate effort to erase an entire empire from human memory?
Okay, so the theory moves from maps to something you can actually walk past every single day, architecture. And it poses a really simple question. You know all those grand, old, classical-style buildings you see in cities all over the world? Who really built them? I mean, think about it. Those massive, super ornate state capitals, old world banks, grand train stations, you can find them on practically every continent, and they all look strangely similar. The theory points out, how did societies with just horse-drawn carriages and pretty basic tools put up these incredible buildings so fast and so uniformly? A lot of the time, the official records are mysteriously vague or just missing. The theory's answer is simple. Our recent ancestors didn't build them. They found them and just moved in. But okay, if these buildings were found, that brings up a whole new question. Why do so many of them look like they're sinking into the ground? And that brings us to a massive part of this whole story, a supposed cataclysmic event they call the mud flood.
Proponents say the evidence for this is literally right under our feet. You ever seen an old building with these beautiful big windows and doors that are now halfway underground, leading to nowhere? Mainstream history says, street levels just rise over time. But this theory suggests something way more dramatic happened. A single worldwide cataclysm that buried the original first floor of every major city on the planet.
Now let's keep going, because this rabbit hole gets deeper. The theory then builds on this idea with claims of incredible, lost technologies that powered this whole forgotten civilization. See, according to these sources, this lost world wasn't just advanced on the ground. Up in the skies, things were even more incredible. We're not talking about some simple hot air balloons here. The theory describes a sophisticated, worldwide network of these massive, silent, elegant airships used for travel and transport. And when you compare it to our own technology, the difference is just staggering. These sources claim the Tartarian airships were silent, that they ran on clean energy pulled from the atmosphere, and that they only needed a simple mast to dock. Imagine a world without the noise, the pollution, and the massive airports of modern aviation. So where was all this clean power coming from? Well, the theory brings us right back to those grand old buildings again. It claims that all their domes, spires, and obelisks, they weren't just for looks. They were actually functional parts of a huge wireless energy grid, literally pulling electricity out of the air to power everything from city lights to that global fleet of airships. So, this is the crucial part. How do you tie all this together? The erased maps, the inherited cities, the lost technology? Well, it all gets woven into this grand, sweeping narrative of a global reset that completely reshaped the world and humanity itself. The theory lays it out in a pretty clear four-step process. First, a huge cataclysm, the mud flood, destroys the old world. Second, the empty cities left behind are repopulated with people who have no memory of what came before.
Third, new systems of control are created to manage everyone. And finally, history is totally rewritten to hide the truth of what really happened.
And what's really interesting is how the theory looks at real historical events through this new lens. For example, you have the orphan trains in America, which moved hundreds of thousands of kids to new homes across the country. Was that just an act of charity? Or, as the theory claims, was it a massive repopulation program to fill these empty, inherited cities with a brand new generation that knew nothing about the world that existed before them?
Okay, but if you're resettling cities, you need a lot of people. So, where did all these orphans come from? This is where the theory takes its most radical turn. It points to the great crystal palaces built for the world's fairs in the 19th century. Huge, incredible glass structures that were supposedly built at impossible speeds. The theory suggests they weren't exhibition halls at all. They were industrial incubators. And once their job was done, almost every single one mysteriously burned to the ground.
So, finally, how do you keep track of this new reset population? According to the theory, you invent systems of control. The passport, from this point of view, isn't a ticket to freedom. It's a way of tracking and taking inventory of people, tying them to a specific nation-state inside this new world order. So you know when you start